Nino,
Yes.
speaking on behalf of the millennials, take us through some of your thoughts about where we are with this, and then we'll come back and talk about this a bit more.
Okay. Sawadee Ka. Mark Twain said, if you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. That's what I would like to do with you now. The majority, especially for Generation Y, like me, the majority is now digital. Physical or face-to-face, as we heard the MC say earlier, is declining. Is that true? I want to take you on a journey. What did you do on 4th of January, 2004? Well, certainly you can remember, but I started my mice career on that day. That was my very first day working in the mice industry. And back then, the internet sounded like this. Four weeks later, Mark Zuckerberg would launch Facebook. And then this happened.
Alright, so here we are in front of the elephants. Cool thing about these guys is that they have really, really, really long fronts, and that's cool. And that's pretty much all there is to say.
Probably one of the most boring videos you have seen on YouTube. Why did this video get 28, almost 29 million clicks? Has anyone seen that video before? One, two. Well, those are colleagues from VNU. Okay. Jawad Karim is the founder of YouTube, and that was the very first video ever uploaded to YouTube. And that was done shortly after I joined the mice industry. So you could say those guys had an advantage. Now they certainly have a lot bigger net worth than I do. And they did a thing or two right. What else happened? Well, we now try to catch up with the digital world, and we think, how can we use digital to push forward the mice industry? I do not dare talk about that because you certainly know more about that than I do. I want to flip it around and tell you and share with you how digital, like Jimmy just shared, is using our industry to push forward their own industry. When I started, those were the companies that dominated the cell phone market and the laptop market. And back in the days, Nokia would just have a staggering amount of market share, 75 to 78% market share. Dell revolutionized the industry at that time by saying, no more retail. Everything is being ordered online. You configure your laptop, you click submit, and we'll deliver it to your house. No more retail. At that time, Apple was a small player. And in the early 2000s, Apple did something that is absolutely crazy. Some called it stupid and even naive. They opened retail shops. Let me repeat that. Dell revolutionized the industry by saying no more retail shops, you just order online, it's the e-commerce. And Apple did exactly the opposite. They opened up Apple stores across the world. Why did Apple do that? Why did they open what looks like a nice exhibition booth? They realized that it takes a Windows user 3 to 4 visits to an Apple store to actually get comfortable with the Mac. And they said the internet could not deliver that touch and feel. Apple went from digital to physical. They invaded our industry. This guy, Tony Hsieh, he built the early version of Zalando, which we just heard about, called Zappos, America's largest online shoe retailer. His USP, the best customer service in the digital era. The best customer service, meaning call centers. He didn't go digital. He put people in a call center. He said there is no rules, no scripts, just serve the customer as good as possible. Tony sold his business for 1.3 billion US dollars based on good service to this guy. Sorry, this guy, Jeff Bezos. You know him. He spent 1.3 billion on another online shoe business because he said, I can always be cheaper than Zappos. I can have more products at Amazon, but to copy that customer service that Zappos had is almost impossible. So I'll just buy it for 1.3 billion. Now, what does he do now? The last earnings that they released said that for the first time, Amazon made a minority of their profits and revenues from Amazon.com. The majority of their earnings and profits came from AWS, cloud hosting, cloud solutions. More importantly, when asked, Mr. Bezos, what do you focus on? Your growth is quite steep. You have a good market share. What do you focus on? What's next? And he said, I will focus on what is most important and will never, ever change. He said, delivery is the key to any online business, the physical world. He said, in 100 years from now, nobody will ever say, I'd rather get my package delivered later than sooner. He said, people will always want their package to be delivered sooner rather than later. That's why he now ventures into the drone business, to make that part of the supply chain his own and to be faster than anyone else. He went from digital to master the physical. And then this guy. Jack is the founder of Twitter, which you've heard, and it's 100% digital. He left Twitter to start a company called Square. You may have seen it. Square is a little device you plug into your iPad or your iPhone, and you can swipe credit cards with it. You have seen it at your local coffee shop maybe or somewhere. So he went from digital to physical, and that physical business is now worth $6 billion US. Well, fair enough. Then there's this guy, Steve Ballmer, Microsoft, former CEO. He spent staggering $8.5 billion to buy Skype. Now, one could assume, and I worked in the travel industry before, that the day after Skype got purchased, he canceled all business trips because now they had the best face-to-face communication in the digital sense. But I believe as long as executives from Cisco, Skype, and Microsoft continue to travel, it is fair to say that there must be something about face-to-face, which Jimmy said earlier, that cannot be copied without a handshake, without sharing a sense of smell, touch, feel, and emotions. What does that mean for the mice industry? Let me give you a few examples. Minus 12% over the last 3 years is what musicians suffered in terms of sales of their product, which is records. At the same time, for 4 years in a row, the concert industry grew by 61%. That is our industry. We talked about mega events before. That is growing for the last 4 years in a row, while the money from digital products like music is declining. Major League Baseball finals was watched by 15 million people. The NBA finals, basketball, watched by 27 million people. 32 million people watched the final championship of LOL. And everyone knows, of course, what LOL is, right, Paul? What is it?
Ask a white-bearded guy, League of Legends.
Exactly.
I got a clue. I did get a clue.
League of Legends. Probably you won't have heard of it. League of Legends is the largest online championship of video games. 32 million watched that. What's more important? For our industry, the online video industry filled 2 stadiums in San Francisco and in New York to have Generation Y watch screens of people playing video games. Do you see a pattern of how the digital community is invading our space and not making it redundant? Who in this room can afford to charge $8,500 US for a conference ticket? Have you ever sold a ticket for any conference, medical, whatever, biotechnology for $8,500? Anyone?
Sadly, no.
They can.
Yeah.
TED. One of the most successful PCOs, we consider them to be an online business, but they're not. They're a PCO. And they charge $8,500 per ticket. Of course, they used online and curation of content a lot better, I must say, than we normally do. And finally, I want you to meet this guy, Eric Lee. Have you heard of Eric? You should. Eric Lee is the co-founder and CTO of LinkedIn. A few weeks ago, Eric and I Skyped. And I still remember that, and I will always remember that. Eric sold his shares. He still has a few in LinkedIn. His net worth is estimated to be $250 million US. Eric left LinkedIn to start a company called Presto. What is Presto? Presto is a networking tool for conferences and events. The technical co-founder of LinkedIn thinks, I see an opportunity in the face-to-face business. I want to create a LinkedIn for conferences and events with scheduling and all of that. And why I will always remember that Skype call, that gentleman who owns about $250 million US, he sat down with me on Skype to show me his product personally. He didn't hire anyone. I mean, he has a team, but he gave me that presentation by himself. I thought that was just magnificent, considering his net worth and what he could do with his spare time. And we just heard about the latest deal. Now, we could say Jimmy moves into the digital world, but we could also say Alibaba is going face-to-face, coming into the physical world. So what we believe for the last 10 years, to wrap it up, is that we're being disrupted. We're being made obsolete because everything is now digital and nobody needs exhibitions anymore. I think the pattern is absolutely wrong. I believe the only thing that has happened, and that is almost more scary than being disrupted, there's just more competition. Now we have other players from the social media world that come into our space because they believe just as much in face-to-face as we do. Paul.
Thank you very much, Nino and Janae.